Today we are going to make story quilts, just like artist Faith Ringgold. She did hers in fabric, and we'll do ours on paper. Let's begin. To start out with, we're going to learn a couple different ways that you can draw a figure. The first is a pretty easy way, and it's a very simple body. First you draw a circle for the head, and then you're going to draw a star-like shape for the body. So two parts of the star are the arms, two parts are the legs, and then where the fifth one would go, that's the head. Draw little circles for the hands and feet, and you have a figure. This one looks a little plump, but I'm going to show you how you can narrow it down and get a more realistic looking figure. Still cartoonish, but a little bit more realistic. So if you just bend the little arms in, and then narrow down the legs, you can still add on your little circles for feet and for hands, and then you just have a little figure. And you can pose them to do different things that you're interested in. We'll show a couple others. Now that we have our little figures, we can add simple little faces, just little dots for the eyes, a little U shape for the nose, and a slightly bigger one for the mouth. Add a little C shape for the ears. Again, these are very cartoon looking, but you can also add hair, a couple little curves. Hair comes off of the head. So do some long hair for a girl and erase the extra lines. And you have a basic little long-haired girl with, again, the dots for the eyes, U shape for the nose and mouth, C shapes for the ears, and there you go. You can do boy hair, kind of give them a little flat top look. Again, it comes up off the head, and then we go back and we erase what we wouldn't see. So you're often going to have guidelines that you're going to go back and erase, but just simple little figures. If you want to go superstar mode and challenge yourself, you can draw a figure based off of a stick figure. So if you take a regular stick figure, like we're used to drawing, and you just make it a little bit fancier, still we start with the head, and then you have the stick for the body. But now we're going to draw another stick up here for the shoulders and one for the hips. And then we're going to think of each of our lines like they're the bones in the body. You have the two segments for the arms on each side. You're going to have two segments for the legs on each side, the thigh, and then the calf comes down. I'm not sure what I'm having this little figure doing, but we'll see how it all comes together. Still draw a couple little circles for the hands and for the feet. And we're also going to go in and draw some little circles for the joints. The joints are the parts in the body where things bend. So those little circles are going to remind us that those are places that we can move this figure. Now that we have our skeleton, or our stick figure, now we're going to go, and on top of the bones, you have your muscles. So now we're going to draw some circles for the muscles. We're going to connect those circles that we have for the joints and just create these long, skinny ovals. That one got a little round, but that's okay. And then we have our next one. We're going to connect these 4 circles to make the body shape. We're going to do a larger circle for the thigh on both sides. And then around the calf, you're going to kind of taper it down or make it narrower down at the bottom. That's just the spot that it narrows down for your ankle, okay, where your foot begins to bend. And now we're going to go and we are going to put the skin on. So over on top of the muscles, now you have the skin. So now we're just going to go and kind of smooth everything out by outlining the shapes that we have. Kind of fixing any little imperfections, kind of smoothing things out, rounding things off. Think about what the body looks like now. I kind of add a little bit of a heel in there. Come in at the calf. In at the knee. Again, add that little heel on the foot. Round out over the knee and up to the other arm. Okay, so now you have your basic little marionette type of person. You can almost see how if we cut him out and put them together with little brads where those circles are, we move them. Now we're just going to go back in and erase all those things that you would not be able to see underneath the skin. So erase the circles that we have for the muscles, erase the stick figure that we have for the bones. And we're just going to be left with our basic body. My big recommendation to you is when you start on your drawing, you draw light. I drew dark so that way you could see what I was doing. But if you draw really, really light pressure just so that it makes a mark on the paper, it's going to erase a lot easier for you. And then you're not going to see all of your guidelines underneath. Artists use lots of guidelines. So now on top of the skin, we're going to add the clothes. Okay, and you can just do some basic little lines. I did 2 little curved lines at the neck for the t-shirt, and a little curved line on each of the arms for the sleeves. You see that the sleeves kind of hang down a little bit lower than the arms themselves, and then the bottom of the shirt. And then we'll put some shorts on them. We're just going to kind of go above the knee, make them a little bit wider than the leg itself. You can kind of loop it around to make it look 3D there if you want. Do that on both sides. And then we're just going to kind of come up like shorts would. Just came over a little too far on that one. There we go. And then again, you go back and you erase the parts that you wouldn't be able to see underneath the clothes. So it's a lot of steps, but you go from having somebody who can say, oh, I can only draw a stick figure, to now you can take that stick figure and turn it into a whole person. You can go home, and if mom or dad or whoever's at home says, oh, I can't draw, I can't even draw a stick person. Well, you show them how to draw the stick figure, and then you show them how to turn it into a person. They're going to think you're magic. Put the shoes on and just kind of cap it there at the ankle. And then you can draw a couple of little lines over for the laces. And then like a little almost figure 8 shape for the bow on the laces. And you've got shoes. He almost looks like he's a zombie. His arms flailing up in the air. Ah! Okay, and then we can go and put our face on. Again, we can do more of a cartoon type face, starting with the hair to kind of give it a little bit of a hairline. But then just our simple little dots for the eyes, a U shape for the mouth and for the nose. It's kind of a goofy looking little figure. But you'll see in these next ones that I'm going to speed up that you can take this same method and you can do lots of other positions if you want. Okay, so there's just a couple ways of drawing the human figure. Alright, so sped up version here, but same thing that we did before. Start with the stick figure, then you're going to add the joints in with those little circles, add the muscles with the ovals, then you're going to go and you're going to smooth everything out by putting the skin on. I kind of skipped and put the little face on there. Smooth it all out to get it all lined out. So this is what figures in more action. It's like he's a runner. Go erase all of your extras, add the clothes. Think about how the clothes kind of lay on a person, then erase your extras, add the hair, kind of squared out the chin a little bit, and there you go. Alright, so now we're going to move on to our nice paper, the heavier weight paper. And to begin our story quilt, first we need to draw a border. We don't need it to be perfect. I'm just measuring using my fingers. My fingers are a little bit bigger, so I use 2. You might want to use 3 or 4, depending on how wide you want your border to be. So I'm just kind of marking out about the width, just kind of using those finger measurements to keep it the same on all the sides. And then I'm just going to freehand the line, because remember with hers, they were on fabric. Fabric moves. Okay, it doesn't have to be perfect. And I'm just going to kind of connect. I did 2 marks on that side because it's a longer line, and just to help keep my width about the same. I'm going to do the same thing over here on the other side. Give myself 2 marks along that long side and just connect them. Come down to the bottom. I'll measure 1 more time on that last side. And then we're going to connect that one as well, and then we can come up and match up the corners. So you'll see it's not perfect. It's a little scraggly in place to place, but that gives it a similar look to fabric. All right, so we have our border, and now we're going to put our drawing of our memory in that middle area. So I want you guys to stop, and if you need to pause here and kind of brainstorm some different ideas, you can. But think of a memory that is important to you, something that stands out that you always want to remember. You're going to decide if you want yours to go portrait style, which is up and down, or if you want it to go landscape like I'm showing it here. Okay, and then you're going to decide which method you want to use to draw your figures. So first I start out here and I'm going to do the stick figure method, and then I quickly realized that it was going to be a lot of work. It was going to be hard because I wanted to do several different figures, and they were all just going to be standing or sitting in one spot, like posing for a family photo. So I ended up scrapping this. So let's just cut here. All right, fresh paper, back to the beginning. I'm going now with more of that star type figure for the bodies. Okay, so I'm just got a simple little, almost like a Fisher-Price little person. Okay, the head on top of the little rounded body. Okay, just adding a couple little details, a couple ovals for the person to be sitting crisscross applesauce, a couple lines on the side for their hands. So they're sitting on their bottom, and then I'm drawing another figure, and this person's going to be kneeling. But again, it's just the same kind of U-shaped body, kind of like the star that we did, giving it a little shirt there first. Then doing the two little nubs coming down for the legs. And I'm going to go ahead and speed this up here. Get the figures done so that way we can see what comes next. All right, I'm going to kind of zoom through this so you can see the process, but yours is going to look different because you're drawing your memory. This is one of my memories. Okay, every year for Christmas, we always pose as a family in front of the Christmas tree. It's our whole family that poses in front of the Christmas tree, so there's like 35 of us in front of this tree. I scaled it down to just my mom and my dad and me and my cousin. But you can kind of see the overall process. It's the same, depending on what you want to do. Now I'm going to kind of sketch the Christmas tree in there. It's kind of a rough Christmas tree. Again, draw light because you will be going over this to color. It doesn't have to be perfect. It can be kind of loose because, again, you're going to fill those details in with color later on. I drew that ground line so that way it looks like the people are standing or sitting on the ground. It's always a nice little technique to add to make your drawings look more grounded, so you don't just have people floating in the air. And you're like, whoa, they're magic. The little tree topper on, add some more detail to my tree. And again, you're going to be drawing your own memory, so I'm going to zip forward through the rest of this. All right, so wrapping up the drawing of the people, now I'm going to work on my border. So I'm going to split this wide border in half, just as you see here. Again, I'm not measuring anything. I'm just looking at it and seeing about where half is and drawing my line. If you really need to use a ruler or a straight edge, I'm sure you can ask your teacher for a ruler and they might be able to help you out. Otherwise, you can always fold a piece of scrap paper in half and use that as a straight edge or a ruler. Works kind of nice, and it's usually pretty handy. And now in my border, I'm going to create a pattern. So in this first inner border, I'm just doing a zigzag pattern. Pattern is something, an element of art that repeats. So it could be a line that repeats, it could be a shape that repeats, it could be a color that repeats. You're going to see that this pattern is created by a line, a zigzag line, and that zigzag line in that border is creating a bunch of triangles. So it's a line that's repeating, that's creating a shape that is repeating. Okay? And then in the outer border, I'm going to do a little bit something that's a little bit more complex. You can stick to something simple. You could do polka dots, you could do stripes, you could do other shapes that you want to have repeating. I am sticking with my Christmas theme, and I'm doing little boxes, little gift boxes. And I saw that mine were starting to get a little off the angle, so I'm just going through and drawing the squares with the crisscross in them for the ribbon. And then I'll go back and draw the ties on there, just to make it a little bit easier. I'm going to draw some other symbols down the sides. Alright, so as I finish up those bows, you'll notice that we've sped up again, because again, yours is going to be different than mine, so you don't need to spend all the time watching me draw. Just want to kind of show you the process. So down this side, I'm drawing some little bells. Bells remind me of Christmas. My mom has several that she used to like to put on the Christmas tree. I put them on my tree now, so I know when the dogs are getting too close to our Christmas tree, the Christmas tree will jingle, and I know that they're in there. Alright, down this side, doing some little candy canes. Putting the pattern in them, just kind of alternating or switching back and forth with the direction the candy cane's going. It gives some variety. Variety is the difference. When everything's all the same, it gets boring. So, wrapping up the drawing, and at this point, this may be all the time that you have. Okay, you may need to keep this in your desk and take it out and work on finishing it and adding the color later on when you have time, and that's okay. If you do have time today to go ahead and get started with color, then we're going to move on to that part. But this might be a good spot for your teacher to pause and let people get caught up. Alright, so when you're adding color and we're using crayons, there's a couple different ways that you can do this. You can just take the crayons and go in super hard with a lot of pressure and just lay that crayon on really thick so there's no white of the paper and it's just on there nice and solid. So I'm going to do that for the little details and things like that. So that is one method. Alright, for the Christmas tree though, I'm going to take and I'm going to outline the tree nice and solid. So you'll see I'm pressing really hard, getting that outline pressed in there. So it gives a nice clear border around that tree. And you'll find sometimes when you're pressing hard that the crayon will break, and that's okay. Broken crayons still color just the same. Okay, and now that the border's on there, now I'm just going to take and I'm going to use very light pressure, and I'm going to go and just lightly color in the background area. It's going to be a lot easier on your hand, and if you go mostly in the same direction, you're going to have a nice smooth look, and it's going to be really pretty when you get finished. Try to not color on top of the lighter colors like the yellows and the oranges and things like that with darker colors like green or blue, because it will go on top and you're going to see that. If they're really small details, you should probably be fine, but otherwise you're just going to go ahead and you're going to go in there and get everything colored in, the entire drawing. So again, this may be something you need to finish on a different day, when you finish early with some of your other work, or you can always take it home if your teacher allows that and finish it up at home. And that's a nice thing too. It's something very nice to maybe give to one of your family members at home who this memory was inspired by. As a mom, I always love getting my kids' drawings. Those gifts of my kids' art is amazing, and I love it when they want to share with their grandparents and their aunts and their uncles too. So feel free to share that gift of your art because you are an artist, and that is a gift in itself. So I'm going to kind of speed through and we'll see the finished product next. All right, here is my finished product. You'll see the only things that are left white are the things that are white, like the trim around the window and the door, and the rest has color. And I hope that you enjoyed getting to share your memories and share what your picture's about with your friends. It's always nice to learn more about each other. See you next time.